Good evening, everyone. Welcome to AIQRATE Webinar Specials CXO series. Today we have Bharani Kumar Aroll, President HYSEA, and Kiran Cherukuri, Vice President HYSEA with us to discuss on the topic, Navigating the Future of IT Industry in Disruptive Times, Strategic Perspectives. By the way, HYSEA is Hyderabad Software Enterprises Association and is a unique regional ITES industry association that is 28 years old and has more than 300 registered members, representing more than 90% of Hyderabad's IT industry revenue and employee headcount. This session will be moderated by Dhanrajani, CEO and co-founder, AIQRATE Advisory and Consulting. Before the session, some housekeeping rules. Request all to be on mute throughout the webinar. Leave your questions in the chat window and we will take them up for Q&A. This webinar is being recorded and you can check the playback video on our website www.aiqrate.ai. Now I would like to introduce Bharani. Bharani Kumar Aroll is the CEO of InfoPeer Solutions, an IT services company, and President of Tech Triad Incorporation, a US-based IT services company. He was the country head for Butler America India operations and managed global IT BPO services at Butler America Incorporations. He has about 30 years of experience in the areas of IT, engineering, and BPO services across manufacturing, aerospace, telecom, healthcare, BFSI, and retail domains. He has proven expertise in cybersecurity, business intelligence, AI, and data sciences. Bharani is now the president of HYSEA. He also served as General Secretary for Cyberabad Security Council. She Shuttle, the flagship program of SCSC, is his brainchild. He has been bestowed with a Special Recognition Award by the Telangana government for his outstanding contribution towards women empowerment. Bharani, thanks for making time to be in our CXO series webinar specials today. Now would like to introduce. Thank you. Now would like to introduce Kiran. Kiran Cherukuri is the CEO of TechEra and Vice President at HYSEA. He comes with 27 years of IT industry experience. Earlier, Kiran worked with Tech Mahindra as Vice President and Group Head of Sales for EMEA and rest of the world regions for infrastructure and cloud services business. Prior to that, Kiran was with HCL Technologies for 14 years, played multiple roles. He incubated HCL Technologies Hyderabad Delivery Center, and he was the center head from year 2006 to 2012. Kiran, pleasure to have you in our CXO webinar specials today. Thanks for making time. I'll now hand over the session to Samir. Samir, over to you.
Thank you, NK.
Perfect. Thanks, NK, for the introductions. And Bharani and Kiran, it's a pleasure to have both of you have around this session. And I noticed, I think, with the credentials both of you carry outside of HYSEA is remarkable. I think the best part of that is when both of you, there is 60 years of experience, which of course doesn't highlight on your age first. But what it can highlight would be great for our audience to pick up nuggets of insights, information, and really some solid takeaways which we are attempting from this session. And we have global audience as well, so it will be great to kind of have them take some kind of, let's say, good aspects of your anecdote. To get the ball rolling, the theme per se, Bharani, Kiran, is very topical. There is a lot happening today in terms of last 4-5 months, what we have seen. Because of the COVID, everything has become tipsy-turvy. The plans, what many of us came out with 2020 seems to be completely out. But new plans, new models, new strategies are emerging. And that's where, in the context of information technology, the IT industry, it's very relevant and I would say very inflection let's say, time. And I want to set the ball rolling with asking you about this aspect about one, You see this entire IT set of organizations looking at a new way in terms of disruptions and getting their digital agenda up and going because of the COVID. And there are also some winds of change happening, how they were actually doing digital kind of, I would say, transformation, or how they were actually looking at digital transformation for their clients is altogether different. So in your observation and in your opinion, what are these strategic changes which have happened in the last few months? What you see from a IT kind of, let's say, transformation perspective for the end clients, which will happen in next few months? And would there be some new models which will emerge? I'm sorry, I'm making it a layered question, but I think it's very topical for our audience to have this perspectives coming from you, please.
Absolutely. Samir, very good evening. Good evening to everybody, and also good morning to those who are joining from other parts of the world. Samir, thanks for having us. And it appears to me that it's more of a HYSEA program with both the president and vice president being here. Thanks again for having both of us here. All right, so I think it's a very loaded question. Yeah, I'll try to just do some justice to it. Well, we all know that the coronavirus pandemic is a humanitarian crisis that continues to take a tragic toll on people's lives. There's no denying it is also acting as a catalyst for change, be it economic, societal, personal, and corporate, on a scale not seen since the wartime. The scale of the change and the speed at which it is happening demonstrates the fact that companies are facing once-in-a-generation shift. And for all that uncertainty about what the future will look like, it is clear already that it will be digital. So digital transformation has become the more urgent than ever need right now. But we believe the COVID-19 crisis is likely to significantly accelerate the shift to digital and fundamentally shake up the business landscape. It is time for the government, enterprises, large or small, to invest more intensively in digital technology. Well, again, this is just based on my own analysis and picking up from a lot of my peers and also the industry analysts. So COVID-19 today has already reoriented our relationships, which we definitely appreciated, oriented our relationship to the outside world and to one another. In response to travel bans, lockdowns, as well as containment measures and quarantines, people turning to online shopping, absolutely crazy now, right? E-learning and social media to maintain some semblance of normality. At the same time, aggressive social distancing mandates means companies, educational institutions, and other organizations are harnessing digital technology to collaborate and operate more efficiently. I'm on this collaborative tools almost, like say, 4 to 5 hours a day, right? So that is the way the life has changed for me, particularly. I'm sure everyone here agrees to the fact that enterprises leading in digital transformation are significantly less vulnerable to the pandemic. Thanks to that early adoption, these businesses will also be in a better position to identify new business breakthroughs and innovation to generate sustainable corporate results during its challenging times. Well, many companies realize that the digital adoption should have been accelerated with the changing business models and specifically post-COVID impact. A recent example that I would like to bring out here is that, which can also substantiate the statement. So we all heard the news that one of the large consumer packaged goods companies, CPG company, saw its online orders go through the roof, only to have its operation unable to process and fulfill the search. Whereas tech-enabled businesses, on the other hand, were able to move at speed, such as food tech business like Zomato, which used its platform to work with grocery startups to meet surging online demand. Same was the case with Amazon, which expanded into grocery business. So for many companies, the only option is to accelerate the digital transformation right now, whether we like it or not. Indeed, whether I kind of just say this or not here, but what I've learned from our peers and also from the analysts, that we have leaped 5 years forward in consumer and business digital adoption in a matter of around 8 weeks. I'm sure everybody would just, agree to this point. Banks have transitioned to remote sales and service teams and launched digital outreach to customers to make flexible payment arrangements for loans and mortgages. whereas grocery stores have shifted to online ordering and delivery as the primary business. Schools in many locales have pivoted to 100% online learning and digital classrooms. I'm not sure if you know that there's about 1 billion people sitting in front of the computers, right, as a part of their digital classrooms. Doctors have begun delivering telemedicine aided by more flexible regulation. Manufacturers are actively developing plans for lighthouse factories and supply chains. The list goes on. The consumers' adoption of digital channel have shown significant increase during the crisis period. In banking, it's gone up to almost 73%. That includes the new users as well. Entertainment has gone up to 64%. Grocery, very interestingly, is at about 61%. Almost 30% of them are new users. It just story goes on with apparels and other retail businesses as well. So therefore, the crisis has brought many opportunities for almost all businesses of any size to validate their business models, accelerate the digital agenda, create new digital engagement channels for clients and consumers. So to sum up, the main agenda for boardroom discussions at this point in time, that is also happening virtual for that matter, will be these items. So I think, there's huge paradigm shift in the way the digital operations have just taken shape, and particularly the digital agenda of all these companies, whether it's going to be manufacturing or aerospace or retail or banking, financial services. So we see the same kind of a pattern across the industry verticals with the digital agenda. So I think we can just talk more about this as we move forward. I hope I answered the question. Samir?
Sure. I think you gave a very fantastic rendition, Bharani, in terms of panoramic view about various industries. And specifically, I picked up what you rightly, and it's a very profound thing, what you said about what best of the CIOs or the CTOs could not do in terms of digital transformation and adoption. I think this 8 to 9 weeks have really kind of done it. And specifically, as you said, that the adoption per se on a digital side has gone up significantly across industry, and that trend will continue in the time to come. So I think that's a great setup in terms of how I think the discussion will flow. I want to switch to you, Kiran, and specifically while Bharani laid a very good foundation about saying, look, yes, but this is the time we need to really accelerate digital transformation. But the aspect over there is also, when we look from organizations' point of view, there are some now solid benchmarks which have been set up in terms of how digital transformation needs to take place in the enterprises. And from an IT services organization's point of view, mid, small, or the large ones, how do you think they should now prepare in terms of understanding this new benchmarks and kind of, let's say, new mechanisms of digital transformation, and how they should go about addressing this to the clients?
Yeah, thank you, Samir. Thanks for inviting us for this seminar webinar, and welcome everybody. So there are two parts, or rather three parts in your question. So let me just go by one. What are the digital adoption trends that which we are seeing in the industry? I think quite a bit of that is covered by Bharani, but I'll try to see if I can actually make a couple of points around that. And then what are the benchmarks? So while I probably wouldn't go in depth in terms of the maturity models, but I think what are the dimensions in which actually the digital adoption could be benchmarked across industries is something which I would like to touch upon. Finally, what is that IT industry could actually leverage on this momentum. So that's a third part of it. The first part of it, Bharani made actually, so I think very compelling remarks that what we have seen in the last 8 weeks is probably which would have normally happened in 5 years. So that's a vaulting that which we have done over a period of time. So adoption is the survival today. So digital adoption is equivalent to survival, this one. And then digital is leading the recovery for majority of the enterprises today. So what happens is, as CXOs and the leaders of the consumer enterprises in the IT organization are the provider organization, I think the leadership is more in testament period at this point of time due to the current situation. We have seen 2000, 2001 crisis. We have seen 2008-9 crisis. Okay, but I think this one is something which we have now never seen the scale at which is right now disrupting the businesses. So slightly diverting and then giving a message to the CXOs is today the leadership is at more testament than ever. And it is not about what's happening around us, it is more about actually what are we going to do about it. So that holds more significance today. Whether we are able to come out of this crisis is based on what we are doing right now, and then how fast we are able to adapt to the change and then be able to actually find solutions to be able to leverage this. Okay, rather than looking at it as a disruption, probably this is actually, there is a winds of change which is giving us an opportunity to actually lead the next wave of growth. Okay, having said that, so there is one more point which I would want to touch upon, like the enterprises across the industries are actually adapting digital at a breakneck speed at this point of time. Okay, and if you look at the consumer market, which is a major market, USA. So I think banking has seen about 40% net new consumers adapting to digital. Earlier itself is about close to 50% of the consumers are actually using digital, but I think there is a 40% increase. Similarly, there is entertainment, there is grocery, apparel, utilities. I think anywhere between 20% to all the way up to 60% net new users some of these businesses have garnered. So definitely there is, and then majority of the, so one point of time in the industry, what happens is digital is viewed as more of a change the business enabler. Okay, and then which was more of a forward-looking transformation that which organizations was embarked on. Okay, but now what has happened was in the last 12 weeks, organizations had to leverage digital for run the business. Majority of the digitization that which we're talking about took place primarily for enabling the workers, enabling the employees to service their customers, which otherwise are restricted by the mobility restrictions of the pandemic. So the majority of the investment and then the leapfrog that which we are seeing in the digitization is more in terms of enabling the employees and then servicing their clients remotely than part of their long-term plan. So while there is an acceleration that has happened on the digitization, but I think the direction in which the digital adoption has happened slightly different from the long-term agenda what they had. Okay, so now coming back to the second question that which you have, which is about the maturity, right? So we had seen something called a vertical maturity matrix, horizontal maturity matrix, and then now the DMM. So there are several organizations, including Google, Deloitte, and then others actually come up with certain maturity matrix. But I think this is primarily is your digital maturity benchmarks assess the digital, how forward your organization has actually moved forward from the start. Where do you stand with respect to your peers in your enterprise business? Okay, and then how far are you actually at from the destination? So on a 0 to 10 scale or a 1 to 10 scale, 1 is something is a very lowest end, but 10 being basically the highest level of maturity that which you could get. But I think majority of the organizations are somewhere anywhere between 3 to 6 at this point of time. Okay, depending upon the vertical which they are in. Okay. Few certain dimensions that which we normally will look at actually digital capability across 5 clearly defined dimensions. One is the consumer dimension, right? So how are you actually engaging your consumers? How are you measuring the consumer experiences, right? And how do you actually integrating the channels to reach the consumers, right? So one is the consumer dimension. The second dimension is the strategy, right? what kind of a brand management that which you are doing, what kind of an enterprise management tools and then processes that which you have brought into the organization. Okay, so which are more in terms of the strategic dimension. So the third is the technology. So today the technology, starting from enterprise collaboration, data management, and then your delivery maturity, and then your project management maturity, what are the tools and then processes that which you have deployed, right? So these are all primarily the dimensions with respect to the technology. In the operations, so I think there is a rapid deployment of analytics and AI to get unique insights into your operations and then ensure that like they are more optimized, right? So and then more agile. So operations has to be more agile, right? So these, and then real-time insight. So I think these are the areas where I think on the operations front, actually, there are some metrics which have been defined. The fifth one is the organization and culture. So I think digital transformation is primarily depending upon the culture of the organization. So I think the various stakeholders of the organization need to be actually syncing to one drum beat across the organization. So which very, very important, right? So in all the 5 dimensions, there are various models and then metrics that have been evolved. So the scale could be 1 to 5, the scale could be 1 to 10. But however, I think these are the 5 dimensions in which the digital transformation maturity or DMM can be actually measured. Okay, that's the second part of the question.
Kiran, I just want to chime in. I think you gave a great aspect about this whole digital maturity curve, and also emphasized in terms of how it's leapfrogged as part of the overall, I would say, offtake in the last few months, of course, because of this acceleration we have seen. So the point over there is more important. The infrastructure, I mean, for the digital offtake to happen has always been cushioned. Some organizations had it, but they need to take it to a next level because now the velocity and the quantum of data or even transactions have increased, activities have increased. And also the ones which are not prepared about this entire infrastructure aspect on the digital side. What did they do kind of, or they're still grappling? Would like to pick up some views, and Bharani, feel free to kind of chip in also, please.
Okay, so I think what has always happened was, so there is a regulatory environment. I'll give you a very simple example, right? So when Hyderabad IT industry was given 48 hours to go work from office to work from home, right? So there are earlier there was several constraints that which we would have actually. So most of the
48 hours.
48 hours.
That's
48
it.
hours. I think that's a flat, and then probably with a special request and all that, I think another 24 hours has been given. But within 48 to 72 hours, I think we managed to move close to 90% of the entire operations from work from office to work from home. So the constraints which earlier would not have enabled those are basically there is ACZ norms. So majority of your computing, your equipment and everything that which probably you would have actually imported it, and then you would have availed the custom duty. And now that is a bonded warehouse, and then which you would not have actually basically permission to take it home, but which has been relaxed. So there are telecom connectivity. So you can't actually connect a CUG with a telecom network and then get onto the public network, right? So that got relaxed. So several statutory compliances, and then things got eased to enable that, like the fast transition. So that has happened. And then earlier, let's say you said that like organizations have not prepared to go 100% online. So they do not have the digital workplace solutions. They probably would not have workplace as a service or a digital or a virtual desktop environment, whatever it is, right? But what has been done is basically physically shifted majority of the PCs home by taking the permission from SEZ authorities or STPI, and which enabled, which normal course people would not have thought about it. Right? So these are the certain deviations which the industry has taken across the board. And the customers, let's say the earlier, I think banking and finance customers are probably the companies servicing actually healthcare R&D kind of situations, right? Probably they were hesitant to ask their clients at this point of time to get a permission to work from home. But I think this pandemic enabled actually even the clients to come forward and then give that liberty to the companies to go and then enable their employees to work from home. Of course, there is a little bit of a compromise on a short term on the security solutions, the security of the data and then some of those things probably would have actually overlooked over a period of time. I wouldn't say compromised, but I think overlooked over a period of time to enable that, like there is a foundation happens there, right? So some of these would have accelerated the rate at which the work is enabled. Right now, I think digital adoption majority, my view is actually what has been enabled is remote working has been enabled. Remote consumer connect has been enabled at this point of time, right? And then there are tech has come up with tools which are collaboration. So I'll talk about it probably a little later, but I think that's what my view is. And Bharani, if you could actually add anything.
No, I think, yeah, I mean, I totally, can you want to mute if you don't mind?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I totally agree with Kiran on his observations about work enablement, right? How it is kind of was transitioned in about less than 48 or 3 days time. And I think see, this crisis that we'll have to look at in a very different way, because in 2008 when the economy crisis happened, it was primarily on the demand side, right? But this crisis, which is very different because it happened on both demand and the supply side, right? So that created a very different combination of problems for the customers and also for us. And I think here, the customers were very, very supportive and understanding of the situation because they were also going through the crisis in terms of, like say, our transition from work from office to work from home. And imagine in about 3 days or 2 days time, we had about close to 95% of the people working from home, right? It is absolutely an incredible achievement. And I'm sure, Hyderabad played a big, it was a trendsetter, I would say, because we heard a lot of news about other cities. And here it was a very collaborative approach with industry body like HYSEA and another organization called Cyberabad Security Council, NASCOM, TAI, everybody coming together, working with the police department, working with the government officials to make sure that the transition happens very smoothly. And I think, as Kiran mentioned, it is all, work from home enablement, digital enablement. At the same time, what is very important is also the digital infrastructure, right? When I say digital infrastructure in the current context, it's about the internet connectivity, right? And the phone connectivity, and also your power reliability, right? So I think the uptime of the power is very, very important. I think we navigated through a couple of days with some challenges, but I think government recognized it and was able to kind of provide stable power, right? And also the internet service providers came in handy. They took this opportunity and of course took that as a challenge and be able to provide some good digital infrastructure. I think companies also rose to the challenge and started giving people dongles, right? And also UPS, and also some of the laptops were in high demand. They just shifted the desktops. I think it's a collective, kind of an approach to the entire problem. In addition to that, some of the BFSI customers and healthcare customers, they don't normally allow anything to go out of the secure premises, but they did give some special approvals considering the crisis for a temporary basis. But now temporary is becoming the new normal because you don't know when things are going to be coming back to normal. So one observation that Kiran mentioned is the DMM. On the DMM, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Okay. No, so the thing which I was asking Bharani was more about this aspect about the niche and the mid-size technology firms. And I think you and Kiran very, very, I would say, nicely laid out, no interruptions, everything went fine. Suddenly that flip happened in a very swift and accelerated manner. Organizations understood the whole relevant significance of putting employees first in terms of a virtual environment, infrastructure followed. Specifically from your side, Bharani, and you I'm sure have interacted with multiple set of organizations in the last few months and conversed with them. Did you see or did you hear anything in terms of any concerns specifically from a mid-size or a niche set of IT organizations that clients are asking maybe something else, clients are not happy, or there are seemingly some kind of a difference in terms of what the new SLAs, what they're expecting versus what needs to be delivered? Any concerns or any kind of, let's say, issues or challenges you heard around these lines?
Yeah, so Samir, great question. So this crisis, right? I would say there are two different issues that we need to talk about. One is the financial crisis the companies are going through, right? The small and medium enterprises definitely have a very small runway, right, as compared to the large companies, which have a good, say, cash in the balance sheet. Whereas the small and medium companies, particularly the small companies, have a very short runway, and their projects are not long-term in nature, right? And their SLAs are not kind of, again, long-term in nature, right? So with that said, they definitely had challenges to be able to, navigate through the crisis, and they still are under a lot of financial pressure because the cash flow is an issue, and there are no subsidies available to them to be able to kind of get, things rolling. And again, government has come up with some, incentive measures, whatnot it is, increasing the line of credit, whatnot, right, automatically by so much percentage and all that. I think yes, but that is not going to really solve the problem, particularly from a financial perspective. On the other hand, the business continuity, right? I think it is not only a problem with small and medium enterprises, it is also for the large enterprises. Customers are also going through a lot of financial trouble at this point in time, because when we talk about some of the industries like aerospace and oil and gas and all that stuff, right? Retail for that matter, the recovery, there is estimated recovery considering that things are going to be okay by, end of this year. The recovery is, slated for sometime third quarter of 2021. And some things are even happening in first quarter of 22. So with that kind of, let's say, trends, they're also under a lot of tremendous pressure. So what they're trying to do, they're coming back to the service providers, whether large or small or mid-size, for a contract renegotiation. And you know what? That is going to be happening at a very large scale, believe me, because it is a kind of, like say, it's not a win-win, but again, we share the risks. That is the situation. So that's what I've been hearing a lot. But I think from a compliance perspective, business continuity perspective, delivery perspective, I think we're doing pretty good. So that is not an issue at all. I think it's all about the financial situation. That is what is driving the industry a little, to a difficult situation right now.
Sure. No, I think you said a very right thing, of course, behind all these challenges, which is, of course, no one anticipated, no one could fathom. I think there is also this understanding how we maneuver from this crisis. And if the recovery period, which seemingly is looking a bit longish, I mean, in terms of a long tail of COVID coming back again in terms of different wave or streams, will also compel a lot of IT organizations, large, niche, smaller, mid-sized, to kind of really rethink their models in the time to come. So I think that's a good point what you made. Switching to you, Kiran, and taking this aspect in a different shape, that just, and as Bharani also mentioned, just a few months back, or rather 5-6 months back, we were talking about, in the context of digital transformation, reimagine the enterprise. I mean, that was almost a rallying cry of many of the organizations. Now, suddenly we are saying resurrect the organization because there are issues maybe of solvency, working capital, revival, kind of a thing. So from your understanding, Kiran, would love to hear your thoughts. What kind of new capabilities, solution offerings you anticipate, I mean, IT organizations, small, mid, niche, even larger ones, coming out with? Because as every crisis throws new opportunity, I think there is some good opportunity for the IT organizations to be also be in the fray. What's your thinking around that? Kiran, you're on mute, please. Kiran, you're still on mute. Go ahead, Kiran.
I'm unable to unmute it actually, so maybe some technology glitch. Can we?
It's fine now. Please continue.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry about it. I think it took some time to unmute. Yeah. So I think some part of the last question, and then I think alluding to this question. So one point I would like to make is IDC somewhere around, I think, predicted earlier that like by 2008, the overall spend on digital adoption is going to be $1 trillion. And then by 2022, it is going to be $2 trillion. With the acceleration which is happening at this point of time, so we could imagine, I think that would have been even close to even 3 billion at this point of time. That's a huge opportunity even for the large enterprises and then small and medium enterprises. Of course, each one has got their own sweet spots. But however, I think with the changed situation, so I think organizations could look at actually, so primarily, most of the enterprises has to redefine their digital transformation journey in lieu of the changed conditions due to this pandemic. The consumer behavior has changed now. There are more and more adapters on the digital side, on the consumers, right? So I think we'll have to redefine. So organizations has a great opportunity to help enterprises redefine their digital journey now, okay? Which is an opportunity for the large as well as the small enterprises. The second is actually use data and AI to improve this.
Looks like there is some local network issues at Kiran, and there's some bandwidth issue. That's what I'm seeing on the messaging here.
Okay. So while Kiran joined, Bharani, let me just extend that question to you. I mean, do you see some new kind of solutions, capabilities emerging in the entire IT landscape from a perspective which could cater to the new demand segments from a digital transformation perspective?
We'll be definitely appreciating the fact that the cloud adoption, right, has taken a huge shift, right? Particularly, it was very, very handy when we started working remote, right, and work enablement from home and all that stuff, right? But when I look at this digital, technologies where there could be tremendous opportunities, we have already seen telemedicine, right, and the electronic classrooms where I said that I think 1 billion people are sitting in front of the computers. So the e-commerce we have seen is a surge in kind of demand, and digital payments are going to be increasing multifold. And the learning management tools are also is going to be a lot, as we see. One of the locally bred company like Byju's and all that is coming, kind of just taking a very exponential growth. Skill assessment, and as Kiran mentioned about cybersecurity, and that is going to be a huge area where cybersecurity the tools and technologies have to be looked into. And again, Zoom's market cap is just multiplied, almost 1,000 times. The collaborative platforms are in huge demand right now. The productivity management tools, because even in our recent survey, about more than 51% of the companies mentioned that employees' productivity levels are between 90 to 100%. So which means we need to have some very robust, solid productivity management tools in the area of working from home to be able to measure and make sure that we get the best out of the employees, right? And also to give the best to the customers. So the workflow and security management system. So I think there are tremendous opportunities in all these different areas. And I mean, as you rightly said, Samir, crisis throws a lot of opportunities. I'm sure we are, in the midst of that. And I don't think, digital spend is going to be anywhere lesser, even whether it's small company or medium company or large company, right? All our customers. are going to be kind of spending a lot on the digital arena. So, okay, so is that okay? Or did I just kind of address you?
Perfectly fine. I think while we are back now, so we'll take it from.
Sorry, I think there is a power outage out here, and then I'll have to switch on to an alternate mode.
Perfectly fine.
Sorry, Kiran, you may want to just improve your digital infrastructure, Kiran.
That's true. So there is always constraints.
I could see that, and that's an observation. Is outside of reimagine and resurrection, the one R we have added is resilience. And I'm an analytics AI expert. The first observation when things go wrong is looking at the facial expression. But I must admit, both of your facial expressions were absolutely fine, because in such situations, leaders lose patience, and that is visible from the facial expression. But hats off to you, Kiran. Go ahead, please.
Okay. Yeah, coming back to, I think one is redefining the digital strategy. So I think while I was making that point, then I think probably I also learned a lesson to redefine my own digital infrastructure. The second one is leverage of UI and then AI and then data into business operations. So I think that's going to be a huge opportunity for the organizations in terms of being able to provide that guidance to the enterprises. I see there is about 68% of the process manufacturing companies are actually looking to digitize their operations, right? That's a huge opportunity for majority of the SMEs as well as the mid-size IT services companies. Okay. The second is to modernize the technology infrastructure. That's a huge opportunity for the system integration players at this point of time. So I think you are also talking about, I think organizations' readiness is not in terms of their infrastructure, right? So the cloud adaptation, whatever has happened, are the digital workplace solutions, the security solutions, the collaboration tools, okay? And then I think there are certain tools that which we have seen in a very recent past. In the last 12 weeks, actually, I've seen several Hyderabad-based SMEs have come up with solutions like some are online collaboration. So there are a couple of companies which actually talking about employee engagement, a gamified employee engagement models which are going to improve the productivity in a hybrid mode. And then ensuring that the program management and the project management seamless across work from office to work from home. So these are the solutions which have actually evolved over the last 12 weeks within the SME community within Hyderabad. I have also seen a couple of companies talking about digital learning platforms and then interviews, basically online recordings and then AI-based interviewing mechanisms so that you would actually be able to avoid people coming all the way to the offices and things like that. Offline mode of interviewing. Okay, there are several solutions that which we have seen in the last 12 weeks, which evolved over a period of 12 weeks period. So now the market is tested for some of these tools. The level of innovation, because there is not much of a need, probably would have happened moderately in the past. But now it is going to get accelerated because there is a definitive market for them today, right? So the rate of innovation is going to accelerate, and then more and more such solutions is going to come, right? So that's my take on it. And one is a 2 trillion plus market opportunity for the IT organizations to be able to actually leverage from now to probably a 3-year period.
Sure. I think that's a great observation, what you said, Kiran. And I want to throw this question now to both of you and want your individual perspective. And Kiran, can you please go on mute? That would be great.
Sure.
Thanks. Now, a discussion around future of IT industry would not be adequate if we don't talk about the talent. Now, Bharani, you mentioned about in your earlier part of narrative about talent going remote in terms of working, and Kiran, you said about some of the changes in terms of quick adaptation from their side. But there's also one more thing about the IT workforce and the talent is about, in the just last few years, they've gone through a radical change from a talent mix. There were some dated, archaic kind of a skills, and a lot of the professionals went in terms of changing themselves or reskilling and upskilling themselves on the digital transformation side, the digital technologies, digital skills. Now, if that was not enough, now we are saying, okay, many of them will continue to work remotely or kind of in a hybrid model. I mean, coming to office sometimes and working from home largely. In this entire mix of how the talent will work in the few years, what do you think will be the new ways to engage with talent? To look at, I mean, this whole look and feel of office was one of a great attraction to IT workforce kind of a thing, the bonding, camaraderie. The other thing was performance management. The leaders, the project managers could meet with their teams and say, okay, look, yeah, let's go about doing project. That will change. I mean, for some time at least, and maybe for a longer tail. Any thinking what you have on this side, how these new talent models will emerge, and maybe some new skills or new kind of, let's say, ways how IT workforce will be engaged. And I'm just throwing one more piece around gig workers. Recently, there was an article by Economic Times that in the time to come, maybe 2 years, 3 years from now, entire IT workforce, and we're talking about 4.4 million, 35% of them, almost 1/3, will have gig workers. That's a huge change what we're talking about. So would really love to know your individual thought process on this piece.
So yeah, let me start with that gig workers,
Sure.
thought process. Okay, because see, our labor laws have to change. Future is all about gig workers, without a doubt. But our labor laws are very old dated, and of course, it's very employee, kind of protective, old practices, whatnot. I think we just kind of almost inherited from the manufacturing or different kind of industries, right, where it's all about the blue collar, kind of environment. Which again, in our industry also, we have all the developers programs are also categorized under blue collar workers in the labor laws. I think that needs to be kind of definitely revisited and enhanced to be able to accommodate the changing paradigm about engagement of talent, right? So gig workers is going to be definitely unstoppable. That is going to be happening a lot in India as we move forward. And on the second thing, from a talent acquisition perspective or engagement perspective, see, just about 10 years ago, the demand for talent professionals and the technology, in which they are skilled was very different from what it is today, right? So the rapid change in technological advancements, right, is not really happening with the change in syllabus in the academia. So they're still working on some old curriculum, which is not really changing as fast as the digital technology changes. So in order to just kind of align with that, there's got to be a lot of, like say, talent management, schools or reskilling schools, institutes have to come up. And I'm glad that Telangana government has an organization called TASK, Telangana Academy for Skills and Knowledge. I think that's acting as a bridge between, what the universities offer and what the industry demands, right? So that's definitely a huge gap out there. We need to kind of really look at how we can speed up the talent, management process, reskilling process. And that is the second thing. And
Sure.
we did talk about, Kiran mentioned about a very important concept of DMM, right? Digital maturity model. But again, as you see, the digitalization expectations are also a moving target. It's not that it's going to be staying at one place for the next couple of years, right? So with that said, the talent also has to be also, improvised or, kind of brought up to speed to meet that particular demand. So I think talent is going to be a huge challenge, to be honest with you, because the employability percentage at this point in time is only about 11 to 12% or 13%, right? Given the change in technological demands. So I think the employability factor is a big concern for the industry at this point in time. And I'm sure Kiran will talk about all the skills that are in demand, since he runs a company, talent management company himself. So I'll leave it to the expert to speak about that.
Sure. Thanks. Thanks,
Bharani. I think one point which I'd like to make to start with is actually, so the entire digital transformation has leapfrogged, and then we could do something which we expected to do in the next 5 years in the last 8 weeks. So, but who will do this? So you need definitely professionals with the matching skills, right? So I think digital skills actually of paramount importance, but the transitioning of the current traditional employees, software developers into the digital skills is not a no mean task. Okay. So I think the rate at which we can transform them actually requires a lot of innovation, and then there is not one particular model that suits actually. So there are actually multiple ways actually organizations should try out. So today, I think the overall percentage of investment which the organizations spend is about 2% of the revenues on the training, their internal employees and then the freshers, right? So now that probably might have to be double to ensure the rate at which actually the talent need to be transformed. Okay. And then the first gap is basically industry demand versus what academia is producing. So project ready resources is what industry is demanding. And then that is where is a huge gap. So I think 40% of this entire spend is going into actually honing the fresh resources to be able to project ready. Okay, there probably the traditional skills will be replaced by the digital skills. Okay, that's one set of area which is a slight easier to actually put people onto digital skills. But I think talent transformation, so which is primarily lateral reskilling, is a big challenge which organizations are facing at this point of today. So there is majority of the organization which I was part of this, some of these initiatives both in HCL as well as in Tech Mahindra. So there are specific teams which have been constituted actually. So there are war rooms which have been actually has put in, and there are budgets which have been sanctioned to ensure that, like, I think 40% of mid managers actually to be trained and then certified on digital skills within an 18-month period. So there are actually such goals which organization to organization, it might change the percentage and the number of people. But I think the organizations are spending on special initiatives like that. So coming back to the type of skills, anything that which we will see a different type of skills, but it is more of the quantity of those people is what is more important. I think the skills probably would remain around cloud and infrastructure. So that's one major chunk of people actually, because cloud adaptation is going to be significant. And then cybersecurity. So I think Bharani would have mentioned it earlier. Data science, starting from data scientists, architects, analysts, engineers, right? So various facets of data science experts which are required. And then I think change management. I think now, I think it's a very, very important aspect. So far, I think you're working in a different one way of, and then you're going to be actually completely a different way. So this change management specialist, which is a net new skill, which is going to be required and then which is going to be in demand. So in addition to that, like the technology landscape is also moving forward. So I think there is a huge amount of transformation even in terms of the skilling. The models have to evolve, and then some are already in place. Okay, and looks like I think it is a little challenge the speed at which we need to transform the talent in line with the adaptation that is required on the digital journey. Okay. That's I rest my point.
Sami, just to add on to what Kiran mentioned, HYSEA has taken up a very kind of an aggressive initiative on educating the student community. We have just kind of entered into an agreement or MOU with the local news channel called TV5, and every Tuesday for 1 hour we try to bring in experts from the industry, particularly on the digital technologies, right, to be able to deliberate, give an overview, and give the kind of tools that they have to learn, how they have to kind of reskill themselves or upskill themselves in these areas, right? All that we have already started doing this, and the journey has been very, very successful. The last couple of weeks we've been doing it, and we've covered all the areas that Kiran mentioned right now.
Wonderful. So sticking on to HYSEA, Bharani, and this is where we started with, and I want to kind of end with this entire thing, but it's an association from last 27 years, if I'm correct, and almost subsumes 90% of the Hyderabad's IT, I would say, set of companies and all. Big achievement, first of all. So you being at the help affairs, what are the strategic interventions, plans going forward, what you have, kind of a thing which you have planned, and any significant kind of salient highlights you would like to kind of tell to our participants, please, from a HYSEA point of view? Bharani, you're on mute, please.
Yeah, thanks, Samir, for asking that question, because HYSEA is a very, very unique organization, and it's one of its kind in the entire country, because it was formed about 28 years ago, a couple of months after NASSCOM was formed at the national level. So we're almost, as old as NASSCOM, and we are primarily working on the Hyderabad IT ecosystem. I've been very successful, and every brick that has been laid in IT industry of Hyderabad, right, it is definitely, HYSEA would have contributed to it. And it's been a 28-year-old organization, as you rightly said, 300 plus registered members, and it represents almost 90% of Hyderabad IT industry, both from a revenue and employee count perspective, right? See, the entire IT leadership community of Hyderabad contribute to HYSEA initiatives and programs. And I'll just talk about the programs briefly.
Sure.
We do a lot of our programs through multiple forums and committees comprising of volunteers, primarily leaders from the industry. We have something called the Innovation Forum, primarily working on developing the innovation ecosystem, fostering innovation in every activity, whether it's service or product or startup or even in the academia for that matter. And also supporting the SMEs. Small and medium enterprises are a backbone of our overall economy, right? So having said that, we have a separate forum dedicated, which Kiran leads, to be able to support the SME community. And in fact, for that matter, we're meeting up with the government, and government was very proactively kind of announced that some of the government projects in Telangana, they want to award it to our SMEs. And we're going to be having a coordination meeting with them next week. So that is the way we just kind of facilitate for our SMEs. And the industry academia, we just want to be a bridge between the industry and academia to make sure that the resources are coming very job ready, industry ready, project ready, as Kiran mentioned. And I think there are a couple of infrastructure issues here and there that comes up. For example, now the digital infrastructure, which needs to be kind of scaled up and improvised. And we work with government, we work with the infrastructure service providers to be able to kind of seamlessly provide these services to our industry. And last but not the least is the CSR activities. And we certainly want to give back to the community that we're part of. We don't want to be called a kind of industry that spoiled the greenery here, but we also contribute to a lot of greenery here. Haritha Haram is one government's project. We just take a lot of initiative to be able to get greenery around us. So we work a lot with government on policy advocacy and support government initiatives on training and skilling students, and co-host some of the events with the government, support their innovation agenda, provide mentoring support for the startup community in their incubation centers. And we also collaborate with the universities like JNTU and colleges for promoting innovation in programs, right, at the academia level, in the college level, through the programs called J-Hub, Makerspace, and so on and so forth. I think I can just talk about our achievements for days and days. So I think that is what it is. And I request through the platform that whoever is part of the Hyderabad IT industry ecosystem and yet to become members of HYSEA, please do become part of HYSEA ecosystem, www.hysea.in, and please do join and make sure that you support us in our endeavor to be able to support our industry and the overall ecosystem here. Thank you.
Wonderful. Bharani, Kiran, we would have loved to continue, but there is a time to keep. But must say, I think, first of all, thank you so much for being there in terms of the session. But more importantly, I think what we could draw in last 60 minutes was, I would say, a melange of aspects which are not only crucial and pivotal, but it got further enhanced with both of you giving very solid and very, I would say, succinct perspectives about what's the change from IT side, what could have been done, which you also said kind of a thing, what is coming, and what is more important is about some of these specific sectors, capabilities and solutions, how the entire IT workforce and IT specific organizations need to keep in mind what they need to do as part of digital transformation adoption. This will not end here in terms of the long tail of COVID. We see it kind of, let's say, fostering kind of in terms of a longer period. But what's important, I've realized in conversation with you is, I think we've realized that, look, there is an opportunity in the making. Let's make the best use of it. COVID, maybe a table stake or hygiene. More important is to kind of ensure that we kind of propel ourselves in the future. Sectors were great, very engrossing, and very, very, I would say, engaging. Thank you so much for being there, and wish you all the best for HYSEA and your respective roles. Thank you so much. Thank you all.
Thank you. Stay safe.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thanks, Bharani. Thanks,
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.